Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Chloe and I'm the events coordinator at Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand are part of the Info Exchange Group. We're a not-for-profit social enterprise that tackles the biggest social challenges through the smart and creative use of technology. Now, for those of you who haven't attended a webinar session with us before, Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand facilitate an annual training calendar of online webinars, workshops, boot camps, and webcons to help the social sector upskill in all things digital. Check out our training and events menu on our website for more events coming up online. We'd love to see you there. But enough about me. I'm really excited to welcome you today to the webinar, Reimagining Your Office, How to Work Virtually Using Office 365. And that's with Conan Daly and Alex from the IT team. Now, Conan's a regular presenter with us and Alex is a feature presenter sometimes as well. And the IT team are a New Zealand-based born in the cloud managed service provider. Over the last 8 years, Conan and his team have worked alongside many commercial and non-profit organisations, supporting them in their migration to the cloud and their adoption of the Office 365 suite of technologies. Now, before we begin today, and I hand you over to Conan and Alex, who you can see they're eagerly awaiting us, we'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues, please type them into your questions box, which is in the GoToWebinar control panel. And if you have any questions throughout the session today, please also use the questions box to type them in. Note that your questions and comments won't appear to the entire group, and we'd hope we can answer those questions throughout the session today and at the end of the session today. So please don't hold on to your questions, ask them throughout the session and we'll answer them as we go. If you're on a Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, this can also sometimes affect the quality of your audio and video of the webinar. So if possible, please close all other programs to help you have the best experience possible today. Please note this webinar is being recorded and a copy of the recording and the slides will be sent to you as soon as the webinar ends today as well. And before we start, I'd like to remind you there'll be a short survey at the end of the webinar, and we'd appreciate if you took a few minutes to provide us with some feedback today as well. That's all from me. So I'm now going to pass it over to Conan to get things started today, and I hope you all enjoy your session. Thanks very much, and thanks Conan and Alex.
Thank you, Chloe. Great introduction. Some of you may have seen us before, obviously, and we've got a poll shortly just to hear about maybe some recent attendance. But yes, Alex and Connor from the IT team, we're here to talk to you about remote working and working virtually, utilising Office or Microsoft 365, and we'll touch on that shortly. I'm going to be spending several of you, if you've attended a recent webinar, you might have heard me going on about this, and unfortunately I'm going to have to do that every time because we're adapting to the new branding. But yeah, this is a really interesting topic. We are diving a bit deeper into the key services in Microsoft or Office 365, namely SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive, among others. But that is going to be a big focus for today, and how you can utilize it to improve your ability to work virtually, work remotely, and you know, the changes it can make to your IT systems. So I think we'll kick off with the poll, if you don't mind, Chloe. I think poll number 1. That's okay.
Yep. We're going to do
polls. Sorry, excuse me.
Poll about where are you in your Microsoft Office 365 journey is the first poll we have today. So if everyone could answer the poll question, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you in your Microsoft Office 365 journey? Conan will talk a little bit about quickly the difference between Microsoft Office 365 and or not in a moment as well. But if people would like to say whether they have started or haven't started, you're using email, or you're using OneDrive, SharePoint and email, or you're using Teams and email, or you're using Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive and email. Give another 5 seconds or so for everyone to complete that. Great. Okay, so the results are in. We have really mixed split here. So 27% haven't started, 24% are using email, 11% are using OneDrive, SharePoint, and email, 24% are using Teams and email, and 15% are using all three: Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, and email. So we've got a real mix
Yeah.
of people here today.
Sometimes think I should guess beforehand and then see how, because every time it surprises me, but I don't know if it's because I wasn't certain of the direction. Yeah, look, for those, so those people in the first camp, we haven't started. You may have attended our webinar last week. You may not have. What we're doing today is we're going less into why you should move to Microsoft 365 or Office 365, and more what they are and showing how they work. So really, we're anticipating that you've drank the Kool-Aid, you're keen to move forward with this, and this is delving a bit deeper rather than talking about the remote working aspect in particular and how it relates to that. We won't be going over all of the functions of M365, and we particularly won't be talking about how to migrate yourself across. I would recommend, if you did not attend our previous webinar, that you do, or just watch the recording, as it does delve into a bit more into how to migrate and I guess why to migrate. So yeah, and for the rest of you, hopefully, I do believe there will be something in here for each of those phases. But as I said, there'll be a little bit on those, the baseline of those tools and why you should use them, but we're kind of assuming there's a keenness to adopt these tools. Okay. I think it would be great to, I think we'll do the next slide in a moment, Chloe, not yet. So who is this for? As I said, probably just sort of recapped on that, but those that, not just for, but those that previously attended the webinar on Introduction to Office 365, this is a good flow on. There's a little bit of overlap, but this is a good flow on. Those that are using 365 but haven't progressed too far down the chain, wish to improve your ability to remote work and take advantage of what 365 has to offer in regards to that, and in particular, those that are keen to learn all of or one of Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. So, what we're going to cover today: licensing changes, the M365 change that I was referring to earlier. Why remote working? Why is it important? Why do you want to do it? Why does this help? Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, and the relationship between those tools. Additional key services to the remote working experience, additional beyond those three, and security considerations and adoption considerations. Chloe, if possible, could we put up the next poll?
Yeah, sure. So we're just going to do a quick poll on what you hope to get out of today. So you can select multiple options here if you like. Tips for improving remote working. That's supposed to be learning more about SharePoint, learning more about Teams, or other. So if you've got other, please type them into the questions box as well, and I can read some of those answers out to everyone. And just to now allow another 5 seconds for everyone to complete that poll. Some great results coming in here. Lovely.
That was your
Okay.
spelling mistake, not my spelling mistake, by the way, Chloe.
I know it was. Sorry, I should clarify.
Right,
it was my spelling mistake. It's not
I think
Connor's.
people get it, but yeah.
So 88% say learning more about SharePoint. 76% say learning more about Teams. 53% say tips for improving remote working, and 8% have said other. And so we've got a couple of answers in the other there, Conan, so I'll just share those as well with you. We've got a couple of people saying OneDrive, how to best support the rollout of Office 365 in my organisation, so that idea around migration that you talked about, and how do all the products fit best together and to use them.
Great. Well, hopefully we can cover those. Yeah, we'll be talking a little bit less about migration, but we will be talking about adoption, and that is important. And it's kind of the underlying a difference between IT, 5 years ago, and IT now. It's less about the back end tinkering of the techs like Alex, and more about how to get your people using the tools well and not giving up on them. So yeah.
That's great.
Thank you, Chloe. Just continuing on, so just a little bit about the IT team. Chloe did a great introduction, but yeah, we were formed in 2011. Office 365 or Microsoft 365, and as you change that slide, has been big since our inception. But basically, we provide IT support, like most IT companies, on site and remotely throughout New Zealand and Australia, and pretty much anything that plugs in and turns on, we support. And of course, one of the reasons we're here is because not-for-profits are a group that we work extensively with and make up a large portion of our customer base. So before we dig in, and this is going to form, this may become a bit of a broken record, we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between Microsoft 365 and Office 365, or more so the lack of difference. So critically, before this year, Microsoft 365 was a additional service layer above Office 365. So most of the people in this webinar attending, if they're using Office 365, and we all refer to it as Office 365, maybe everyone except for Alex, who's been pulling me up while we've been preparing for this, but everyone refers to it as Office 365. And if you subscribe to Microsoft 365 before 2020, you had an additional layer, and that layer was mainly a security and a device management thing that Office 365 didn't have. So, but when you had Microsoft 365, you also had the elements of the Office 365 license as well. So it was kind of like Office 365 here, and then Microsoft 365 as a wider add-on. Now, what Microsoft has done this year is they have rebranded the whole thing as Microsoft 365. So Office is no longer, it doesn't really exist anymore as a term, which is quite disappointing, because Microsoft has spent the last 9 years or 8 years marketing this Office 365 as a thing. The reasons they've done it is probably confusion between Office software and Office 365. But yeah, so those previous, as I mentioned earlier, the additional layer of licensing around device management and security still exists, but it's, instead of being called Microsoft 365 instead of Office 365, it is a more premium license type. So this is a breakdown of the common licenses that some of you have. If you have the E1 or E3 licenses, or you're looking at those, they are not affected by this, except really it's called Microsoft 365 E1 instead of Office 365 E1. And you may have seen that changed on your invoices or your credit cards or something like that. So Office 365 Business Essentials, which is a very common tool, and the next slide goes into what that has, is now called Microsoft 365 Business Basic. Office 365 Business Premium, which is the most common Office 365 license, is now called Microsoft 365 Business Standard, and Microsoft 365 Business. This was the kind of big next license, and we've had a lot of interest and, in some cases, uptake in this license. It is this here, Office 365 Business Premium, but with an advanced security and device management layer. It's more expensive, but we differentiated it because one is Office 365 and one is Business 365, but now they are all Microsoft 365, and it is Business Premium. And yes, this here, the fact that these two licenses are very different and basically carry the same name, has and will continue to cause confusion. So just to give you an idea about what those have, Microsoft 365 Business Basic is just email, Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive only. There's a few other add-ons, of course, many other add-ons, in fact. Forms, Power Automate, Delve, and those types of things are part of this as well, but these are the core services. Business Standard, which was previously called Office 365 Business Premium, is these tools here, but also the Office suite that you have installed on your workstation. So it gives you that license as well. And then Microsoft 365 Business Premium, which was previously M365 Business, is all of these tools in Business Standard, but also Intune, Azure Protection, Information Protection, Defender, Conditional Access, and Virtual Desktop. And there's a few others as well. But really the difference is it's a security layer and a device management layer that's very handy for people like us or administrators. Now, a cool thing just before I go on about this or continue on from this is not-for-profits like yourselves are eligible for 10 free licenses of this license here. Generally speaking, it is superior in almost every way to the E3 license. There's a few things it doesn't have, but generally it does cover everything you need. So if you are a 10 or less seat or staff user organization, or you're sitting around 10 to 20, it's very likely to be cheaper to utilize this license or free, and we would say there are great benefits to it. The setup of some of these advanced security functions can be reasonably elaborate, but you do get a benefit out of the gate. So certainly consider that, and yeah, contact Connecting Up and TechSoup if you need any licensing information on that, because they can certainly help. Or you could, of course, contact us, but definitely go to them first. Now, continuing on. I think our next poll would be helpful, Chloe, if you don't mind me getting them out of the way early.
Yeah, lovely. So the question is pretty simple. Is remote working important to your organisation now or into the future? Select one of the following. Another couple of seconds.
Quite interested in what this is going to say, to be honest.
Yeah, it's great to see the results coming in, and really interesting results. So we've got 64% say very much so. So you're in the right webinar, which is good.
Yeah, that's good.
36% say to some extent, and 0% say not at all. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that. I think if it was not at all, particularly as a large portion of the attendees here will be from Australia, it would surprise me. And if you tick not at all and you're in Melbourne, that would be interesting as well. But fortunately, there isn't any of those. So yeah, obviously we're all realizing that. I believe that if we did that poll this time last year, we would have had a large number of people that would have said not at all, and for possibly good reason. The belief around why you need to do remote working and the productivity drop that goes with remote working was pretty high, and so it's good that people are getting on board with this, because while it has become a necessary thing, it does have the potential to improve us. And if COVID happened in 2010 instead of 2020, it would have been a productivity catastrophe. Ability to access your emails outside of the office was pretty light and meager. So that was about the extent of what people could do, and only big organizations had really good functionality. So it would have been tough for our economy, and so it's very fortunate that it did happen in 2020 instead of previously. So anyway, the importance of remote working. It is a changing world. We all know, everyone's got it there. I don't need to convince the not-at-alls, but even more, reverting to lockdown, which has obviously happened or happening in Victoria, is a big thing, and it does force us to change the way we're working, and it will continue to hang over our heads in both countries for a while, we expect, regional or nationally. Now, staff expectations are changing with remote working. One of my next slides talks about millennials, who is a term that you get thrown around negatively often now, but basically the staff force, the staff that you have that are in the 20 to 34 age group tend to be looking for job opportunities that are remote working, allows remote working, and so it is good to take advantage of that. Tied to one office is risky, i.e. disaster. Being able to remote work will help you in the event that you did have a server failure, because you'll be adapting away from that. And it allows everyone to work at the same quality or speed regardless of location, internet permitting. So just a few quick stats. You're 2 times as likely, small organizations are twice as likely to hire remote employees. And I think we at the IT team are in that position where previously we'd be very selective, depending on the role, about where in the country we would employ, but now we could basically employ a service desk person anywhere technically. 52% of the global workforce works from home at least once a week. This data was pre-COVID, so it's probably now 95% or something. And 6 times as many organizations as in the previous year agree that dynamic team structures, as in different places, will become the norm. A few key things about teamwork that could be how you are working today. Disjointed collaboration and file sharing could be a characteristic. Dispersed resources, and therefore with the challenges with that. Third-party tools, things like Dropbox, Zoom, for example, can create a bit of a security concern, and lacking solutions for mobile workforce. People wanting to bring their own device and use alternative devices can create some challenges. So what Office 365 does in a nutshell: good for mobile workers, great for external collaboration and internal collaboration as well. Great security for those remote workers, and real-time teamwork, people being able to work together and collaborate without having to say, we need to be in one spot, we need to be in a meeting room to do that. So, key elements of remote working. This is what we're talking about when you, I guess, consider what we need to cover off or improve, or I guess focus on when we're thinking about remote working for it to be a success. Mobility, you need to be able to work from anywhere. Accessibility from multiple devices, and the device that you're using needs to be able to do everything well. If it just does part of the job, it's not as good. And that's a common thing. Pre-COVID, you'd often have a situation where if you're in your office, you can access everything, but if you're at home, you can only access your email, or it's a poorer experience to access your applications or your files. That needs to change. Communication, this is the thing. There's a difference between being able to communicate and being able to communicate well, and we found that in COVID. Using a cell phone for a meeting amongst 4 people is not ideal. And so communication and doing it effectively, getting to the level where it worked as well as it did as well as it did when you were in person as you're at home, is almost, I would say, or very close to, and it's something we have done, an achievable outcome. Collaboration is different from communication. How can you work together on documents, on files, on planning in a remote situation? Because that was always a thing for us. It was, we can communicate well, but if we want to get together and bang out an idea or work on something, we needed to be in one place, and we've been working on how to improve that, and these tools assist. And then security, often the perception and sometimes the reality is that security when you're outside of the office is inferior to in the office. So these are the key services that we're mostly going to be focusing on today: SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, how to automate, and we won't spend much time on that because we have a dedicated webinar to that you can look at, Planner and To-Do, and Dell. So SharePoint Online. It's quite a big, meaty topic, to be fair. This slide doesn't necessarily help to simplify the things, but we've got a few slides here, and then Alex is going to do a demonstration for everyone. SharePoint is one of many things. It is an intranet, and/or it is a replacement for your file server. It is a co-editing system to allow you to have staff edit documents and spreadsheets, etc., live. And it's your ability to access your documents on the web. It's a repository for forms and that type of thing that is a traditional intranet. And yeah, really, and check in, check out system. There's a few other things. It can be a community center. Everyone does it a little bit differently, we find, and you can go a little bit of the way, or you can go all the way. And Alex will talk a little bit, or show a little bit of what it looks like. So yeah, SharePoint, but think of it as you are no longer storing your documents on your file server or a central workstation in your office or Dropbox. You are storing them on SharePoint, and there are multiple ways to access them, including on your computer from the web. That kind of thing. So going into further detail, it's a documentation management and collaboration tool developed by Microsoft. They developed this in the mid-2000s, or probably early 2000s to be fair. But what if you had used SharePoint 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago even, maybe 10 years ago, it is a very different beast from what it was then. And it's got a bit of a bad name, to be fair. Allows you to split between departments, teams, and that kind of thing as well, for different intranets. It's excellent for document management, its document management capability. Has version control and version history. And it's more of a static depository than a social collaboration zone, which is what Teams is, although previously it tried to do that as well. OneDrive it has a strong relationship with Teams, but it is with SharePoint, but it is not the same thing, although they do affiliate with each other. It's simple document storage, hosted in the cloud, obviously, and you can share individual files or folders with external parties and colleagues, and it synchronizes with your phone and obviously the web as well. It's kind of an alternative to Google Drive and Dropbox. Now, the difference between the two, top line is SharePoint. SharePoint's for your group, your organization, your company files. It's also your intranet, and it's a place to store and hold your links, your forms, and your wiki, and integrations with third-party tools. OneDrive is your personal files. And when I say personal, I don't mean photos of the kids and that kind of thing, although of course you can put that in there, more your individual files. So when I'm working on something, it's not really for everyone, I'm just working on it, I tend to store it in OneDrive first. That's how I store. It's a backup for key folders in your workstation as well, and it's good for sharing with third parties in a simple way. So over to Alex to do a light SharePoint OneDrive demonstration.
Sure.
All right.
Second, I'll just share my screen. Hopefully everyone can, oh, hang on. Everyone can see my web browser. You can see it? Good.
Yeah.
So I know it still says Office 365 at the top. It should be Microsoft 365. You'll still see Office 365 around the place as Microsoft slowly renames everything. But this here is the Microsoft 365 portal that you'll get when you log into Microsoft 365. The two key technologies that Colin's just been talking about, OneDrive and SharePoint, here. So we'll start off with OneDrive because it's nice and simple. And you'll notice that most of this is web-based. I will show you how it interacts with the local PC, but I'll be working mainly from the web. And the advantage of having everything from the web means that no matter which computer you are looking at around the world, you could be on a home computer, you could be on a work computer. Of course, this would depend on company policy, but theoretically there's no limit as long as you've got an internet connection to where you can get your files from. So this organization I'm looking at is a fictional, I think they make drones is what it's meant to do. So as you can see, I've got a bunch of different files here. I've got some Power BI, I've got some Excel, I've got some Word documents here. And you'll notice over here it says sharing, they're all private. Everything that's put into OneDrive is private by default. Again, OneDrive is the files that you're working from and not the files that you potentially want to share with other people. You can, however, share files with other people. So let's want to, let me click on it.
Because you're sharing, Alex, it might be changing the icon.
Oh no, here we go. I can click on this little link here and click share. And you don't have to just share with people inside your organization. You can share people inside your organization, anyone with the link, or specific people. Set a password on it if you don't want everyone to be able to get in without the password, and set how long they're allowed to get access to the document. You can even set if they are allowed to edit or if they can just view the file. So I've already shared this.
Particularly good for things like board docs, board notes, where it's very sensitive, but you need to share it with someone that doesn't have a work email. You can share this outside the organization quite well.
Yeah, so Colin is actually signed in as Megan, and I've previously given her direct access to it, and she can edit the documents. But I could take that away. I could go stop sharing, remove, and she's no longer got access to the document. Yeah, it's a good feature to have. In the past, if you'd email the file to someone, they've got it forever. Now I can say view only, don't let them look at it, don't let them edit. And then if I make any changes and they look back at the document, it would have updated for them. Again, that's internal, external. Most of these, though, it's just specifically for me to work on while I'm getting ready to share them with the team. Next up is SharePoint. So to get SharePoint, I click on the SharePoint link here. I do apologize, it can be a little bit slow when I'm sharing my screen. And this is like the SharePoint hub. Now, you don't have to use this, but this is what everyone gets automatically. You can see there's some news from various sites, but we've got a whole bunch of different sites down here. So SharePoint, as Connor mentioned earlier, is a place to communicate with your team and to work on documents and that kind of thing. So here is what a SharePoint like intranet page looks like. It's called a communication site. And this could be something that you could do in your organization, is make a really slick looking site or sites to communicate with your team. So in this one, they've called it the landing, and it's like a staff hub where staff can quickly find out what's happening, how to find things, how to get IT help, maybe look at the company's benefits, read the news and things that are happening inside your organization. So if you're no longer working from an office, maybe you'd have a notice board or something similar, you could use this instead as a drop-in replacement. So that's the communication side of things. If we jump back into SharePoint, you'll see I've got more than just the landing. I've got a whole bunch of different sites for different things. So I'm a member of different groups. I'm a member of sales and marketing, the retail group, a whole bunch of other ones. So let's just jump into the sales and marketing group. Sales and marketing is obviously a specific part of the organization. So as sales and marketing has come down to global sales, retail, global sales, sales and marketing. Just show you what the global sales intranet page looks like. And as you can see, it looks very similar, and you can click on various things to browse around. If you jump back into sales and marketing, this is called a team site. A team site is where you can store your documents. You can have like a notebook, different pages to talk about whatever the content is here. So I'll show you the documents. All these documents here are part of the sales and marketing group. So anyone that's part of sales and marketing will be able to see them. So here in particular, the Word document. Now there's a few different ways to access this Word document, and I'll quickly run you through a few. The simplest one is just to click on it and it'll open up straight in a web browser like so. Again, as I'm presenting, it's a little bit slow. I'll just let that load. It's also got a lot of graphics in it. So again, I'm not using a VPN, I'm not needing a file server, I'm just accessing it straight from the web. So, and here's the document. And here you've got like a stripped down interface, so you can make edits quickly without having everything that you might have in Word.
If I show, well, which I have access, oh, actually, you show how to share that with me, Alex. Oh, you kind of already did.
You already got access, to be honest, because this one's on SharePoint. You made it theoretically.
You want to open back up? Because one cool thing, important thing about remote working is being able to co-edit something. So if go to that portable and powerful, I'm just clicking on it. Click on portable and powerful, nice and fast. Test for connecting audience. Ignore my typing. Spelled everything wrong. And so Alex can see basically where my cursor is. It's fast. This is, both over the internet, and it works really well. Now, it's sometimes when we first started doing it, it seemed like a gimmick. We were like, oh, what the, this is cool for playing around, like having a whiteboard. But we use it extensively internally. So the IT team has embraced remote working really well, and we have an office and we go into the office, on average about once a week, depending on the role. But every morning we work on a document, which is a series of data that the senior leadership team look at every day. And we basically all live edit that about the 20 minutes before the meeting. So we're chucking in numbers that from various sources. And then live during the thing, we'll go through them. And sometimes we'll make little changes or adds or things like that. And it's a very effective way to collaborate on a document in a way that we didn't think. The other thing is when I'm doing a sales proposal for a customer and I need assistance, I don't have to send an email to a colleague and say, you work on it, and then send it back to me and have all these versions. And that's an important thing Alex might be able to touch on. I share it with someone at the early stage and say, hey, here's the doc. I'm going to be working on this over the next couple of days. And we both jump in and work on it without interruption collectively, and then at the same time. And it is a very effective way. Sometimes we're on a call while we're working on it without the need to share a screen, and it is more effective than you might think from first glance from this little demonstration.
Very effective, yeah.
Spreadsheets as well is an important thing you can do, of course.
Just quickly to show the version history. So with multiple people editing, it can get really out of hand if people are like deleting things they shouldn't be and that kind of thing. But there is control for that. You can see the various edits that have been done throughout this document's lifespan, and it's very easy to quickly click back and restore back to an earlier version if something does get done. And you can see,
backups. This is effectively,
yeah, it's like your backup in a way. So you see that Alex originally made it, and then Megan's edited it since. I've just got a question come through. Can only staff with an Office 365 account or Microsoft 365 account access the SharePoint site? Yes and no. You can have some guest access, and it does depend on the licensing level and that kind of thing. For documents, you can share documents to someone who doesn't have any account if the settings are set correctly. For the site itself, the SharePoint sites are more set up for an internal kind of intranet, not a public website. So if you want anything public facing, you'd have to look elsewhere. But so yes and no is kind of the answer there. I'm not stuck to just editing this document on the web. If I want to use the full featured one, version of Word, I can just go open an app.
And we're using the demo session for Microsoft, so it's kind of conflicting with our own one, which is slightly imperfect. So if there's any technical difficulties or slowness, it's because of that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's going to open, but we'll just leave it there for a second. But you'll see up here the sync button. If you don't want to access the files using the web, you can click the sync button, and what that will do is it will save it onto your local computer. So I'll quickly show you that. You see where it says the IT team, and I've got a bunch of files and folders under here. These are files and folders that I have clicked the sync button, and then it's popped up in here. So if I was to click sync here, I get another one down here that would say sales and marketing documents, and then I'd see all these locally on my computer. And
so, oh, sorry, let's go ahead.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
Oh, I was just going to say that, it is kind of up to preference. So I tend to have a lot of the folders that I work on. I mean, we're used to browsing to, if we've got a file server, browsing to the computer and having every document accessible. What we'd say is sync the documents that you believe you need regularly and offline if you need them. So I tend to do the proposals and customer data, but I don't need everything else. I don't need some areas of the business. I don't need to be synced to my computer. But it is about preference. You can use it like a traditional file server, although you do miss out on some of the great functions that are in SharePoint. Yeah, and then OneDrive, if Alex scrolls up, his OneDrive, which we'd say is far more common and beneficial, is synced to his desktop and is used like a local storage. We have got a couple of questions. Sorry, Alex. One from Megan, who I don't think that's the person. Megan, can you co-edit if the document is opened in the app on your computer? Yes, two people editing. There is one thing where Excel, depending on the version of Excel, it doesn't love it. But yes, you can co-edit. That's what we do. I tend to open it in the app, and some people open it in the web, but most people do tend to use the app-based documents because it is a little bit, I guess, more feature-rich. But you don't have to, and it will automatically save all the time. That's something we said. If you look up in Alex's left, it says auto save. It is always saving, and we definitely recommend you keep that on. Yeah, and then one more question was from Damien. Can external people access OneDrive documents in the same way as SharePoint with the ability to make changes live? That is a yes as well. They will need to log into an account. It doesn't need to be an Office 365, but they do need an account, which will load it up, and they can make live changes, yes.
Yep.
Sorry, Alex, do you want to continue?
So I think that probably wraps it up anyway.
Yeah. SharePoint, yeah, in summary, SharePoint, it can be a replacement for a file server and an intranet. You can use it on your local machine, but you do get great benefit from using it in the web. And as Alex showed, it's just your file server is just a series of files and folders, and that's what SharePoint can be. It can also be web-based.
One other thing that we can quickly demo while I've got it open.
Oh, yes.
if I open up and make a new email, so I'm using Outlook, I'm using the desktop app, and I go attach that file, you'll see rather than attaching a copy, I get an option to share a link or attach a copy. If I want to share a link like this, it actually is just sharing a link to SharePoint. So if I hover over it, you can see the web address for this document. So I'm not sending them a copy, I'm sending them an actual document that they can jump in and changes can be made live. So there's none of this emailing versions back and forwards that you might be currently doing. It's all the same document. And when you're co-working or working remotely, that's very important. Otherwise, it just gets very messy very quickly.
This is a big benefit that you sometimes don't realize is painful in your organization, the emailing of docs. It's natural to email a document rather than just tell people to go here. You're working on something, you want to email them and say, hey, check it, I've finished my bit. Can you please continue working on this? But sending it as a link means you just take away, you can see when they've opened it. It takes away that, hey, which version are we working on, which I recall even a few years ago, it was terrible in our organization. We'd have sometimes big faux pas because we just wouldn't know what the latest one was. We'd have version 3, version 4.2, 4.3, and that kind of thing. Yeah. All right, we'll continue on. If you want to, I'll just take over again. I'm not sure if you need to allow me to do that. Yeah, I'll show my screen now. Well, if you want to do the Teams poll.
Yeah, sure. What do you use your Teams for? So that's a question around whether you use Microsoft Teams or not. You might not. You might prefer to use Zoom or use it for video calling, chat and video calling, or use it extensively as an internal communications tool. So that's chat, video calling, other functionalities as well. I'll give people another 5 seconds to respond to that one. While they are, guys, there was a quick question from Tim asking, are there any significant difficulties in accessing SharePoint with an iPad or iPhone? I know you mentioned around, use of computer. Was there anything else? Is it challenging to use on those tools?
With iPods, well, not iPods, Apple devices, sorry, iPads, etc., and iPhones, there are apps that Microsoft provides so you can access everything. So the OneDrive app for iPhone, iPad allows access to SharePoint as well, and it's very slick. Yeah.
Using the docs, like it's different between accessing the web-based one and using the docs. Microsoft are using that technology, they're using responsive design to help it, but it's always going to be better on a bigger screen. I had to edit a PowerPoint, or at least view and make a few changes on a PowerPoint and use the app, the PowerPoint app, which links to your SharePoint and your OneDrive and allows you to open recent activity. And that's really powerful. I don't have to scroll through 100 files. It just opens straight up and it knows what docs I've recently used. And that effectively saves the hassle of, filing perfectly and hunting down things. So I opened up a PowerPoint. I happened to be on a plane and it had Wi-Fi, which is a bit unusual, but and I was reasonably comfortably able to do what I needed to do. Not as effective as a computer, but you can do it. Okay, so we have
awesome.
We prefer Zoom.
Yeah, so I've got 40% say we don't, we prefer Zoom, and then you've got kind of an even split with 20%-ish saying we use it just for chat and video calling, or we use it extensively as a communication tool. Then 11% say we don't, no need. So there's a real mix there.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so just boxing through this just to make sure we don't run out of time. So yeah, Microsoft Teams, these are kind of the core things that it does. Meetings and calling. So Zoom's big thing is the video calling and having online meetings, and Teams does that. The chat and the collaboration is a really important part of it. So Teams does video calling as well as Zoom, really. Maybe not as well for the big groups. I'm talking massive groups, but it is effective. It's gotten a lot better. It does work really well. The chat and the collaboration are big functions that Alex will show a little bit on in a minute. And this is where it comes into its own, and it works really well as an internal tool, not just for meetings, but for collaboration and interaction. It's been extremely effective at the IT team. And then it allows you to tie in things like forms and everything. And in a way, it kind of competes a little bit with SharePoint, but really it's just allows people to pick and choose how they access things. So yeah, it is a hub for teamwork. So yeah, just a few things in here in these nice Microsoft slides that we have. You've got your meetings, you're having conversations internally and externally. People outside your organization do not need Teams to have a video call with you. It is just the same as Zoom, but internally you can quickly initiate calls with your peers. You can also edit documents and share content, just like you're seeing here. One-on-one chat and group chat is a really powerful thing, and it might seem a bit unnecessary, but it can be more effective than email. Co-authoring documents, the demonstration Alex showed earlier on editing documents, you can do that in Teams for the same documents or other documents, and it's just as effective. And then you can also do Teams calling. It's something that is happening more and more. You can use Teams as your phone system, although it's not huge, and I'd only recommend that if you're using Teams extensively, and it's got some cool functions. So, Alex, do you want to do a quick Teams demo?
Sure. Just wait until I'm a presenter.
So we're making Chloe jump through hoops here.
Yeah, sorry, Chloe. Thank you.
Sorry, guys, answering questions as well. There was a quick question from Sean while you're getting this up. You can run a workshop with externals with Teams, so you can invite externals to a Teams call or a Teams meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely have, for smaller teams, yes, you can just invite them to a Teams meeting, no problem. We do that all the time. And for larger ones, there is a live meeting. So when I'm saying larger, I mean like 1,000 people webinars. There's also
effectively what we are doing today. You can technically do it.
Yeah. So this is Teams. You've probably seen it before, so I'll go through it rather quickly. You've got the normal chat kind of function that you'd expect from any team working program. And up here, you'll see along the top, we've got the ability to video call and audio call very quickly. At the IT team, we video call a lot. In fact, we've got a policy where you've got to have your webcam on if you want to call someone internally. And yeah, we basically will type, and like it's way faster if we just call each other to discuss something. So I'll call up Conan, he'll call me, and we'll quickly discuss what we need to. So chat's great, and the chat function is great for quickly working together. And this is similar to what you do in the office if you just walk over to someone's desk. One of the main features of Teams, though, is Teams. And as you can see here, this demo account's a member of a bunch of different teams for different things. One of them here is a project team, so for the Mark 8 version of the drone or whatever they're making. And you can quickly see how people can communicate. We can drop in documents, and then people can reply and say, this is missing, this should be in here, etc. And I could click on that and open up the document straight within Teams to have a look at it without leaving Teams. See everyone's writing about things. Hey, Megan. So if you see the XT 1050 document here, Megan's obviously dragged and dropped it just by dragging and dropping it onto the box down here. If I click on Files, all the documents that have been part of this channel over here saved in here.
Frozen, Alex, or is it just me?
Still working?
Is it frozen for you?
No, I think it's frozen. Yeah.
Yeah, and just maybe de-share and share again.
Oh, there we go.
How much did you guys miss?
It was just on hi Megan, hi Alex for a little while.
Okay. All right. So if I go back to posts.
Yeah, we missed it. It was in the chat.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah, perfect.
Oh, good. Thanks for that. You can see that a document's been dragged and dropped into the chat, and then people can talk about it and say, let's change this, let's change that. And you can click on this document and open it straight within Teams just by clicking on it, and it will open up in an edit window. And in this design channel, all the files that have been previously shared are available by clicking on the Files tab. So you can see that Megan last edited that document I was just showing you in the chat. And you'll see this button up here, Open in SharePoint. If I click that, this will, it's opening in a different browser. If I can, this will open up in SharePoint Online in this view. If you click that button and you've actually got it signed in, which I don't. And again, you've got the sync button, and it basically stripped down version of the SharePoint interface locally here. So this is really, really very useful for working together, just being able to quickly edit documents, talk about things. Another big thing about Teams is running meetings. So if I click on the calendars here, you'll be able to see a calendar, which I don't have anything, and I can click new meeting to schedule a new meeting. More importantly, I can say, okay, I want to chat about the Mark 8 project, and I want to talk about the design. And then you can just quickly throw in the people that you want to, and at what time, how long it's going to be, and normal location. Now we did have a question earlier where can we add like minutes and notes and what the meeting's going to be about before? Yes, you can. You can just write them in the meetings detail. Or when I schedule the meeting, I'll just quickly do that. It will show up in design in the calendars view. If I jump back into Teams, in design, you'll see that I've scheduled a meeting. You could reply to that with any of the details that you need your team to be able to see.
You can do most of that in Outlook. Sorry, Alex,
yeah.
You can do most of it in Outlook as well if you so choose.
Yep, so in Outlook, the same thing. You just open your calendar view. I want to make a Teams meeting, new Teams meeting. And then it's just like starting a normal meeting. Hopefully it shows up. Yeah.
So
you'll see.
So, excuse me, sorry, Alex, go.
Yeah, there's a link here. So if you're emailing someone externally that's not on your team, obviously they won't get it popping up in their Teams calendar because they may not even have Teams, but they will have a web link that they can click on. So this is similar to Zoom or any other conferencing platform. They can click on and it'll let them into the meeting, either on a web interface or it'll prompt them to download Zoom, Teams. Both work fine.
If you have Outlook and Office 365 at the moment, you probably are not aware that if you go to your Outlook, click on calendar, you will see new Teams meeting, and you can make a meeting request a Teams meeting. And if you just go to new meeting, and do you just want to click on new meeting like in a normal way, Alex?
Yeah, sure.
Yep, so if you're just sending a new meeting to people and you want to book something in, you just click on Teams meeting and it will add that link to the meeting. And sometimes if people haven't seen that before, and you send it to them, it'll say location, they won't get it. You just need to say, hey, just click that join Microsoft Teams meeting thing. But that's how you do it. That works for externals. As Alex said, they don't need to install anything necessarily. They can also call a number if they really want to, but it does work really well. And that's effectively the same as how Zoom works. So just in case you didn't know, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Cool. What else? Anything else you want to show on Teams, Alex?
No, I think that's a basic. There's a lot more. I mean, you can automatically, like those SharePoint internet sites, you can have them, so you can grab them from Teams as well.
The chat, because it wasn't showing it before, just when you're in a chat, if you and I wanted to do a call and have a chat, what would it look like?
Sure. I would just click one of these buttons up along here. I think if I click one of them, it will break. But yeah, it is instant. So Conan is Megan, and he's quickly running back and forth to me.
And so what we'll have at the IT team is we'll have a large list of messages in the chat down the left-hand side. We're talking to each other, and we'll start talking, and then I'll go, I'll speed this up by just calling them. Click on the call link, that'll call them. That's how we work remotely. All right, why don't we might want to jump back to the presentation and wrap things up.
Yep.
I'll just ask a couple of questions in there, guys, as well, while you're there. I've got a question from Kate. Is there a limit on how many people you can have on a Teams meeting?
Yeah, there is. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
Huge numbers for a meeting, and then you do a broadcast, but you probably have something like 100. What it does, though, is but Zoom's been really good for having the grid where you have like 48 people on a screen, and Teams has now got, is it 9? Like 9, so they're there, and whoever's talking will pop up on the screen. and the others will be just down the bottom as icons. But they're about to get a 6x6 or something, or maybe it's 9x9, which will allow you to have 40 or something people on screen at once. But as far as numbers of people, you can have a huge number. And then if you want to do something like this where you've got hundreds, you do what they call a live broadcast, I think it's called.
And the other question was from Sean. She asked, can you schedule working hours on Teams desktop version?
Schedule working hours. I'm not sure what that means, so you might need to elaborate,
Okay.
Sean, and we can pick it up.
Yeah, if you elaborate, Sean, and we'll answer that in the Q&A at the end here. If you guys can keep going on, and we'll go from there.
So Alex talked a little bit. There is a overlap between SharePoint and Teams. They do go hand in hand, and if you set them up well, there's a way to do it, and in some of our workshops and everything, we'll go into a bit more detail on that, but you can set up a team and it will create a SharePoint site, and then you can have strong interaction between the two. You don't have to do that, but there's great benefits. You can set the permissions to be the same, and generally you can unify a team in Teams with an Office 365 group, calendar, planner group, and a SharePoint team site. So how to start with Teams, with adoption. Teams can have a big impact on your ability to work remotely. I think it's a very important tool. And if you're using Zoom, great. But Teams can sort of get you to just go that bit further. And so I would recommend you consider changing from Zoom, which is great for video calling, to Teams, which has that deeper collaboration functions in Office 365. Potentially start with a small team as well. That can be really beneficial, and we'll go a bit more into the adoption functions a little bit further. Delve, we're not going to spend too much time on Delve. Delve is effectively like an employee directory, allows you to see but the critical thing is allows you to see what documents have been being worked on. So you can go to someone if you're working with them and go, okay, what documents have they worked on in our entire directory? And it just is a quick way to kind of see what people are doing. So that's why I highlight this, because it gives you a really good idea, as long as you have permissions, of course, to just see what's going on in your company, where people are at, what their activities are on your documents and in the area, as opposed to trying to find it. Because if you were looking for what someone's been working on in SharePoint or in a file server, you wouldn't know. How would you know? And Delve allows you to see that. Automation, what I would say is the big parts of automation that can help you with remote working are eliminating paper-based processes. We have a full webinar for this that I'm sure Chloe could potentially send around in the post-webinar information, which is highly detailed and really beneficial. And I think I would say if you have not attended our Power Automate webinar, it's a huge, it can have a big benefit on organizations that want to automate processes, improve the ability to do tasks like submit requests and submit leave requests and submit purchase requests remotely. So yeah, it's largely what Power Automate does is it takes data from a form or something else and allows you to automate how that data is sent and moved around and approved, and a bunch of other things. So the other thing is on security, Azure AD. If you do have a remote people working remotely, if you have a server in your office, you're going to be in a situation where generally people are going to be authenticating their workstations against the server, and if you send everyone home, they're no longer going to be doing that unless you have something like a VPN. What Azure AD does is it allows you to authenticate your workstation stations against Office 365, which is key for going serverless. And that is a security function and a security benefit. If you'd like to know more on that, we do have a bit more information in the M365 webinar we've done. This is a little bit of a, hey, go here for these things, but it is something that does warrant a bit of talking, and it is a cool function, but it does require a bit of technical capability. It's not something that you'd easily do yourself, to be fair. But just to be aware, if you wish to go serverless, because you're trying to allow people to work remotely, this is a key function to making sure you're secure. Additionally, take a look at your Office 365 security score. See what's in there. It's a really good way to assess how well you're doing. If you got 100 out of 350, that probably sounds a bit worse, or 388, that's probably a bit worse than it sounds. But doing things like MFA, as we've suggested there, are big security boons for your company, and we would highly recommend that you do consider MFA, as it will lift up your security in a big way. Adoption. Okay, got a few slides on this. Prepare your users for change, and you want to ensure that the new system takes. I'm sure you've had a situation where people know, maybe there's a situation in the company where people know of Teams, they've sort of looked at it a little bit, and they've probably developed an impression on it, and the impression could be that's not for us. What you want to do is, if you are revisiting that, you want to make sure it takes. You don't want to have a situation where you're having to repeatedly say to people, hey, we're going to get this going this time. This time it's going to be useful, because people, each time you attempt to implement something and get it adopted, it will become less effective and hard to do the next time. So a few key pointers. Make sure your users are aware. Give them a bit of a lead up. Say, hey, we're working on this and it's going to be good. Get prepared. And it's not ready, so don't try and use it now, because the problem is they'll have access for it. Build some expectation that there will be some disruption. It's not going to be perfect initially, and that's because these systems, they are an evolutionary tool. What we find is people don't read and follow written instructions as well as we think they do. So sometimes it's best to actually show people these systems and send them off to play with it themselves in a way at the right time. Do not take too many system changes at once. Maybe SharePoint and Teams at the same time is not a great idea. And as I said earlier, multiple attempts at getting the system in use will create difficulty for the next time. Try and do it right. Teams. So help your team understand the 3 different areas. This isn't just video calling. It's video calling, chat, and Teams channel communications. Pick some early adopters on your team. Create a couple of teams and get 3 or 4 people that you want to work on this with. That is a good way to start. If you're already using Teams for video calling a little bit, maybe with externals or occasionally, create a reason to use it regularly. Perhaps have a meeting that you have on once a week, and you want half of your team or all of your team to join on it. Do that. What we say is you have to blow out the cobwebs. This is what happened in COVID. The first couple of times people were frustrated, the audio was really poor. And then after 3 or 4 times, they stop saying that, and it just becomes, hey, this is going to work. And once they know it will work and they don't have to spend 10 minutes every time getting it ready, they're going to use it. What we'd say is consider getting everyone something like this, a headset. They're like $50 or something, and they make a massive difference to the quality of people's communication. SharePoint, there are many ways to start it. You could start using, and I know this is SharePoint, you could start with OneDrive for their personal stores just to get people used to it. Consider creating a basic intranet. Give people a reason to go there. Maybe it's where they submit their forms. Maybe it's where they submit their leave or timesheets potentially. Talk about the benefits. Try to get people using the document-based collaboration, and be willing to put in the time and let everyone know that it's gradual. The thing about SharePoint and Teams is it's not like a traditional IT migration where you go, hey, on Monday morning, we're going to be moved over. There is a little bit of that, but should be gradual. You're generally getting people you're moving something over and getting them using it, and then you're growing it and expanding it. Okay, sorry about the rush there, people. If there's any more questions, please let us know.
We've got quite a few questions, but we probably won't get time to. Yeah, we probably won't get time to answer them all. But I definitely encourage everyone to jot that email down. We'll also send it through in the post-event recordings and slides email that we'll send to you all to ask further questions. I have a couple of quick questions though. You mentioned there at the end, Conan, around forms, power, automate, the security functionalities. Are you talking about functionalities that exist in the Microsoft Premium pack, or what pack does that? Yeah.
So I'll try and answer that as well as I can quickly though. So Power Automate and Forms are pretty much in all of the licenses that we listed. So Power Automate, if you're using it like extensively, and that's far more extensive than we are, you can hit a limit and have to start to pay. But fundamentally, if you want to use a form and use a Power Automate to do approval, it's going to fit in the Business Basic, Business Essentials, E1, all those licenses. E1's free for Connecting Up or TechSoup users, so that license allows you to get this for free.
Great,
and the Azure one I mentioned, technically anyone with a Business Basic or above license can authenticate their machine against Azure, but to take advantage of the key functions, you really need the Microsoft Business Premium or E3 licenses.
Great. Thank you for that. And a quick question from Max around where do you find your Office 365 security score that you mentioned?
Oh, I think, Alex, this is one for you.
Yeah, it's in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, and then down the bottom there's one there for security, and it's one of the links there.
Yeah, so it's not available for just the standard user, Alex?
Not for the standard user, only if you're a company admin. Yeah.
So if you've got an IT provider, hey, just send them an email and say, hey, we want our security score. If you have an internal person, hit them up and ask them to navigate to get that. It'll be, it's very visual as I showed, so you can get a screenshot and that kind of thing. It's a good point to raise, though. It's not available for standard user. It's an admin center thing.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that's probably the end of the questions. I did have one quick clarification from Sean around the Teams functionality. She wanted to know if you can set like a do not disturb on your Microsoft Teams so that you can still work outside of 9 to 5 hours, but people don't see that you're there.
Yes. So I'll just answer that if that's okay, Alex, and you can add to it. So it's a very good point. So we have, there is actually a precise do not disturb function within Teams that basically means that people can still attempt to call you, and there will be a small pop-up, but really you can't see it if you're working, and that's really good. At the IT team, when we decided to go remote working, we developed a list of, I guess, protocols, internally, not technical protocols that we were to work to. And for example, it was that if you haven't set a status, so I'm going away or I'm away to lunch or I'm going away from the afternoon to get a haircut or whatever, you would respond within an hour to a Teams message. So that's a big difference to an email where you could get a message back in a day. And we encouraged our staff to use those. The other protocols, I should say, and I think I didn't add this, to improve your ability to communicate, is we talked about the one where you email an attachment, don't email an attachment, email a link. And another big one we'd always recommend is video is mandatory. We've said to people, start your video in a Teams thing, because if you have your situation where your colleagues in Zoom or Teams are defaulting to black, no video, it's not a video, it's not a meeting, it's just a phone call. You're not able to see body language, you're not able to communicate effectively. Remote working requires things like meetings and collaboration, and in order to do that, you need to see people's faces. So we've said mandatory. If we jump into a meeting and someone doesn't have their video, we joke around and go, what's wrong? Have you got a technical problem? Get your S sorted. So that's how we do it. And we'd recommend you consider something like that. And we also say, stop using these types of headphones. See, get a headset, and that might require your organization to stump out a bit, but it is going to be worth it. Headsets like this are not highly expensive. You are looking at, in Australia, they're probably cost nothing. In New Zealand, they're probably $50, and they make a big difference. And technical issues are a blockage to adoption. So use the tech, get your cameras on, use the links, not attachments, and also use those statuses in Teams would be a tip.
That's great. There's some really good tips there for remote working. I think the idea of even setting protocols is a really good starting point to help people adapt and begin to adopt the system. So I think agreeing on that as a team is really important too. So thank you guys. We have run out of time, unfortunately, but it's usual, and that's also why we have another session coming up, which is called Which Tool When, and it goes more into those collaborations around OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint. So we're going to do even more demos, I guess, giving you the next level up of how you can use these tools to work remotely. I've just popped a link in the chat for everyone. You can follow that link directly, or I'll also send that through in the post-webinar email that I'll send through. But yeah, we really encourage you, if you want to learn more, come along to that session, which will be with Con and hopefully Alex maybe as well, because he did such great demonstrations today.
He didn't know that.
He's been dobbed in now. I hope everyone who's attended today has learnt a lot from this presentation, and we answered as many questions as we could. You're certainly not going to get Microsoft 365 in one session, so you're not going to. It's as Conan said, it's a process, and hopefully we're helping guide you guys through that process. And we'll be doing more of these sessions with the IT team moving forward. So thank you all for coming along, and thank you so much, Conan and Alex, for the session today. It was really great level of detail for everyone, and a really good starting point, I think, around Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. Please do leave feedback for us in the post-event survey that that will pop up when we close this webinar. It helps us tailor these sessions and continue to offer really good information for you in the future as well. So thank you again for attending. Thanks, Conan and Alex. Everyone else, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and you stay safe. And I do encourage you, if you've got further questions, send them through to the IT team. They're so helpful and really great at supporting the not-for-profit sector in these kind of queries. So we'll see you next time. Thanks very much. See you later,
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Bye.